Hello, Nashville. I am Beau. This is the Free Speech Podcast. We've got a number of commercial real estate related questions for you today. I would say one of the overarching themes of the show is to catch you up on high profile developments that were announced years ago, have still not broken ground. And we're going to update you on where those deals are and kind of make some parallels with some of the challenges that we're experiencing in the Nashville marketplace right now. I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the stories we're going to discuss, and then we'll get into it. First, Geodis Park, that's where Nashville SC plays. Geodis Park area apartment building opens. This is a very unusual apartment building that is worth discussing. Next, Metro, right? So the Nashville government adopts a single staircase building code change to lower building costs for developers. So in a rare situation, does the government actually make it less expensive to build housing in Nashville? That's exactly what this change aims to do. You know, it's only applicable to smaller properties, which I'll break down for you. But anytime the government makes it cheaper for the private market to go out and create housing stock for folks, this is noteworthy and should be celebrated. So we'll break that down for you. A Sports Illustrated branded hotel is eyed for Midtown. I personally have never heard of Sports Illustrated branded hotels, but nevertheless, one is planned for Midtown, and it looks very, very cool. I'll break that down for you. This is an interesting story. This really got my attention. A luxury beach club is now planned for Pie Town. You heard that right. A beach club is planned for downtown Nashville in Pie Town. I'll break that down for you and explain to you why that is so unusual. Next, a partnership between Atlanta and Charleston companies. They've yet to announce an update for their mixed-use development that they've been working on since 2022 in Midtown. I'm going to bring you that update. A local development company is still planning a Citizen M hotel for 12th Avenue South in the Gulch. Citizen M is a hotel brand that you haven't heard much of. I'll introduce you to what that is and where this project is planned in the Gulch. A development company seeks to finalize its loan related to a 22-story building slated for 16th Avenue in Midtown. So this is an update on this very high-profile project in Midtown, which would be amongst the 8 tallest structures in all of Midtown. So a very, very big project. I think it's interesting that it becomes news when a developer secures a loan. That's how difficult it's become to capitalize these deals, which we'll talk about. Houston-based Camden continues plans for its 16th floor mixed-use tower on Division Street, which is also located in the Gulch. And lastly, I'm going to break down for you the big, beautiful bill and how it affects commercial real estate. So not the whole bill, but the parts that affect commercial real estate, both the good and the bad. And lastly, we're going to close out the show with my take on what the federal government could do, what President Trump could do to make a huge difference in the commercial real estate market. I'll break that down for you. I would have loved to see more talk about making the changes that I have in mind, and we'll discuss that last. So let's get started with the Nashville SC area apartment building. Nashville-based Market Street Enterprises has unveiled its $123 million 445 Park Commons apartment complex, which is located in a very weird spot, sandwiched literally between Geodis Park, where Nashville SC plays, and the racetrack that is located at the fairgrounds next door. It's literally in between the stadium and the racetrack. The 6-story building is billed as the largest privately developed mixed-use, mixed-income project in Nashville. When you hear mixed income, you know there's a low income housing component, and I use that low income loosely, right? Sitting at 445 Benton Avenue, that's why they're calling it 445 Park Commons. Its address is 445 Benton Avenue. The building offers 335 residences, with about half the units reserved for residents earning 80% or below the area median income. So these apartments are, I think, all the same, except you get to rent them, you get to rent half of them only if you make 80% or less of the area's median income. That's what I refer to as low-income housing. The project also includes 11,000 square feet of ground floor commercial retail space, a 7,500 square foot micro business incubator space for makers and artisans, and a roughly 500 space parking garage. Market Street Enterprises is paying Metro an annual ground rent payment to lease the land. So this is all Metro-owned land. They built a $123 million development on top of land that they do not own. They generally, with a land lease, you sign a 99-year lease, and every year of that lease, you're paying Metro to use that land for your apartment building. So a lot going on here that's very interesting. The location sandwiched between those two projects, like I described, the fact that it's the largest mixed income project that was been privately developed, and it is a ground lease deal whereby they invested $123 million on a piece of land they don't even own. So a lot going on there, very interesting development. But everyone says they want affordable housing in Nashville. There's a lack of affordable housing. Well, this is a $123 million project that's bringing over 150 affordable housing units to the housing stock. Brand new, right next to NSC's beautiful stadium. That area of town is really gentrifying quickly. Next, let's talk about this single staircase building code change that is designed to lower building costs for developers, which, as I say it, it almost seems too good to be true. Generally, the government only wants to cost you money. They only want to take money from you. They want to charge you more. They want to make your life more difficult. But in a rare show of common sense, we've got the government stepping up and making some changes. An update to Metro Nashville's building code is looking to address the city's housing crisis. This is what's known as smart stair reform, which allows for certain residential buildings to be constructed with a single staircase as long as they are in compliance with fire safety standards. If you don't know, most apartment buildings have always been required to have 2 staircases, so in the event of a fire in one staircase, you can still use the other staircase. Another area you would see this that you're probably more comfortable with would be like a hotel, right? Hotels always have 2 staircases in addition to the elevator. The 2 staircase requirement limits options for the layout and the unit size of apartment buildings, which also can lead to excessive uninhabitable space as well as long hallways. The code reform reduces dead space and allows for more windows and increased ventilation than otherwise. So they're trying to make an additional argument why this second stairwell is causing these buildings and these rental homes to be worse than they otherwise would be. I think a lot of that is kind of a stretch, to be honest with you. What we're trying to do is get more apartments under that roof for less money. That's really what's going on here. If you want to suggest that a second stairwell is going to create dead space, worse window lines, worse ventilation, I suppose you can do all that. I'm not sure we need to get too carried away. This building code reform legalizes the construction of quaint, very beautiful, smart apartment buildings that can accommodate residents in a more neighborhood setting. Nashville's version of the code allows for single staircase buildings to be up to 6 stories with no more than 4 units on each floor. The buildings are limited to 4,000 square feet per floor. So it's going to be for smaller buildings, right? 4,000 square foot per floor is not a lot. I'm not sure how much demand there will be to build up to 6 stories if you only get 4,000 per floor. Nevertheless, step in the right direction. Nashville is the 3rd largest U.S. city behind New York and Seattle to implement the code for buildings up to 6 stories. Memphis, Jackson, and Knoxville have adopted similar code in the last year. So I'm not sure that's going to change a whole lot, but it is a step in the right direction. And I think we should just be honest. A lot of the code stuff serves just to increase the cost of these projects, which are already very costly. The more costly the project, the more rent you have to charge for the unit when it's complete. So if we can get these building costs down, we could pass on lower rents to the end user, which should be the talking point. All of that other fluff, I'm not so sure I'm buying it, but perhaps that's the way you have to talk to the government to get anything done. Sports Illustrated branded hotel eyed for Midtown. You tell me, have you ever heard of a Sports Illustrated hotel? A Sports Illustrated Resorts branded property targeting sports fans who travel to attend games is planned for a Midtown residential building. So this isn't new construction. This is for an existing residential building with the first guest slated to be accommodated in the spring of next year. This is being brought to you by a timeshare company called the Travel and Leisure Company. It will operate in what was previously known as Placemaker, called Y Hotel prior to a branding change, and originally opened in 2016 as the apartment building Cadence. So if you're not following this, in 2016 an apartment building in Midtown opened called Cadence. It was later acquired and changed to the Y Hotel. The Y Hotel was later rebranded to Placemaker. Placemaker is now becoming a Sports Illustrated resort and will be owned by a timeshare company. The address of the modernist 6-story building located near the Broadway and West End Avenue split offers furnished style apartment hotel spaces at 1600 McHavock Street. So the concept here was, we're going to provide you with fully furnished apartments. You're going to be smaller than a normal apartment, but they're going to be fully furnished. And I do think some of these previous iterations said, hey, if you are a tenant here at Placemaker and you're going out of town for a week, we will rent your apartment to someone else for that week and we'll split some of the proceeds from that rental. So it was kind of an Airbnb concept whereby they provide all of the furnishings and all of the management. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going from memory. I think that's true. An LLC affiliated with Memphis-based Kemmons Wilson Hospitality Partners paid $67 million for the building in April. As part of that transaction, the buying LLC sold 10 units located on the second floor of the building for $7.68 million to an Orlando-based LLC associated with Travel and Leisure Company. So Travel and Leisure does own some of the units and has since April. The planned Sports Illustrated Resorts hospitality business will operate as a vacation ownership property and be similar to a facility slated for Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Quote, with this new resort, sports enthusiasts can enjoy that same excitement at a resort built specifically for them, offering a place where game day culture meets iconic sports storytelling. Based in New York and founded in 1954, Sports Illustrated is best known for its magazine. In September 2023, it expanded its resort's name licensing deal with Travel and Leisure. So Travel and Leisure licensed the Sports Illustrated brand, and then puts them on timeshare properties. And I think they act as more of a manager of these properties than they do an owner, right? Similar to what like a Marriott does. Marriott doesn't own hardly any of their hotels, but they come in and they manage them as if they are. So I know that's kind of confusing. I tried to simplify, but there's a lot of moving parts there. So we've got a Sports Illustrated branded timeshare coming to Midtown. Interesting. Never would have thought that was coming. Here we are. Speaking of never thought this would happen, how about a beach club in Nashville? And then, if you're going to put it somewhere in Nashville, let's put it in the strangest place possible. Let's put it in Pie Town, which is very near the Gulch, in the heart of downtown Nashville. A concept called Nashville Beach Club is slated for a Pie Town site at 800 6th Avenue South. The venue will offer pool access, lounge areas, live music and events, as well as several food and drink options. Slated to open in the summer of 2027, inspired by venues like the Encore Beach Club and Palm Tree Beach Club in Las Vegas. And this is not a small property. This is very valuable real estate, and we're talking about a 2.2 acre site. I mean, they're building hotels in Pie Town on less than an acre. And we're talking about putting a beach club, of all things, on a 2.2 acre site, which is very valuable. The team behind the beach club does not yet own the site. Sixth and Ash LLC is the owner of the site, having paid $3.5 million for it in 2014. 2014 is a long time ago. It's worth a heck of a lot more than that today. The Nashville Beach Club's pool will operate seasonally around 20 weeks of the year. The venue will be available year-round for private and special events. Platinum memberships will start at $7,500 and include luxury lounge access, private changing rooms, brunch and drinks, and early pool deck access. So you're getting 20 weeks a year, 20 out of 52 weeks. You're using this bad boy the way it's supposed to be used. You're going to have to collect a lot of money to overcome what it's going to cost for this land, what it's going to cost for this build out. I wish them the best of luck. I hope they are independently wealthy, and whether it turns a profit or not, they stick with it. I hope it's one of those projects, because that looks like a good way to lose millions of dollars to me. But it also sounds awesome. Excuse me, I need a little iced coffee here because I'm having trouble talking. All right, here we go. I got to wake up a little bit. Atlanta and Charleston companies have yet to announce an update for their mixed-use development that they've been working on since 2022 in Midtown. More than 3 years after a Midtown property was rezoned to accommodate a mixed-use project, on-site work has yet to begin, and the status of the development remains unclear. They seek a main tower residential building with 311 units that will rise 28 stories, 295 feet, facing Church Street. A smaller building, a hotel, is slated to offer 12 floors and front Hay Street. How many times have I read the word slated today? I do believe we are overusing the term slated substantially in some of these news articles. I'm just going to have to think on my feet and substitute a more appropriate word. The addresses are 1901 and 1903 Church Street and 1902 Hay Street, with the property located about 1 block east of Ascension St. Thomas Hospital, Midtown. The North Point website lists the hotel as being an AC Marriott. North Point paid $6.55 million for the property in mid-2018. The company developed the Sobro site of the 470-room tri-branded Marriott hotel project, 3 different Marriott brands under one roof, located at 5th Avenue South and Korean Veterans Boulevard. The company also developed the Midtown site that accommodates a Home to Suites by Hilton on Division Street and an adjacent Hilton Garden Inn on Broadway. So the developers are heavy hitters. There's no doubt about it. They've been sitting on the land since 2018. They got their project approved in 2022, and still the project has not moved forward. That is the state of the development business in Middle Tennessee right now. It has just become very, very difficult to line up all the moving parts that need to be lined up to bring a high profile project out of the ground. Next story, local development company still planning Citizen M Hotel for 12th Avenue South site. Again, this is in the Gulch. Plans remain viable related to a 10-story building to offer a Citizen M Hotel in the Gulch, with the development team hoping to announce a construction timetable this winter. Located at 109 12th Avenue South, an entity affiliated with Nashville's CB Reglan Company seeks to develop the site with the hotel. The entity developed a nearby Gulch site with a Hyatt caption building. So again, very capable, very proven developer, having just developed the nearby Hyatt caption, trying to bring another building out of the ground in the Gulch. They paid $4 million for the just 0.29 acre property, which is currently a 36 space parking lot. It sits catty corner from the Hyatt caption. So we're talking about building a hotel on just 0.29 acres. Let's go back to the Beach Club project. 2.2 acres. Maybe they're not using all of that. I think there's still a lot to figure out in that deal. But that is a massive, very valuable site to put a beach club when we're only taking 0.29 acres to develop a name brand hotel a few blocks away. I'm just saying, the beach club, I really hope they're independently wealthy, because I'd love to see that happen. The Citizen M Hotel, here it is again, is slated to offer, no, how about this? The Citizen M Hotel plans to offer 268 rooms, a bar, a fitness center, and a rooftop swimming pool. In April, Marriott International announced it had reached an agreement to acquire Citizen M. That transaction has since closed. So Citizen M is now another brand under the Marriott umbrella. Citizen M itself is a brand founded in the Netherlands. It bills itself as hotels providing affordable luxury. Citizen M hotels offer automated self-check-in, no bellhops, in all rooms of the same size and layout. So I like some of this. Automated self-check-in. Please God, can we get that everywhere? The idea that I have to stand in line to check into a room that I have already reserved, given you my credit card, done everything you've asked me to do. Now I got to stand in line to get the key. Please make that the norm. What is a bellhop? No bellhops. What's a bellhop? A guy that brings my suitcase to my room for me? That's so old school. I got a whole gang of kids. We don't need no bellhops. Okay, just get out the way. In all rooms of the same size and layout. So everything's very kind of systematized. All rooms are the same. Check yourself in and out. Very low labor. Those are the ways that they're making this what they call affordable luxury. So I really hope this gets done. I'd love to see how they're going to fit 268 rooms on 0.29 acres, but I also love the concept. So I hope this works so I can go check it out. I'd love to see more of that. As a guy that has to travel all the time, admittedly for youth sports, I don't travel for business nearly as much as I used to, thank goodness, but I'm traveling all the time for the highest level youth sports. So much of what we experience in these hotels could be eliminated with some smart use of technology, in my opinion. All right, let's keep moving. Development company working to finalize its loan related to a 22-story building. Again, slated, no, not slated, planned for 16th Avenue in Midtown. If I see the word slated one more time, we're going to shut down the podcast and reevaluate how we're using our time. This is crazy. These are people that are paid to write for a living, reusing the same subpar words over and over and over. But anyway, so this 22-story building's ready to go upon loan approval. And what they say loans, they're probably really talking about total capitalization, being that traditional loan and that equity investment. The development partnership looking to reinvent a Midtown site near the Musica statue with a mixed-use tower is hoping to soon secure a loan needed for the project. Nashville-based Hall Emery will team with Charleston-based Woodfield Development on the project, which will unfold on just 0.59 acres at 118 16th Avenue South. The future 22-story building will offer 333 apartments, a combination of studios, one-bedrooms, and two-bedrooms, along with 10,000 square feet of street retail. Usually they do that because the municipality requires it. Most of these guys don't want street-level retail above hotels or apartments, but they've got to put in the minimum amount that they have to put in. A 5-story parking garage is also planned. At about 265 feet, this project would rank among Midtown's 8 tallest structures of standing today. So this is a big boy project. The future high-rise will partially wrap around the Tailgate Brewing Company taproom structure. The future tower is shovel ready. That's what a lot of these projects are. I'm telling you, a lot of these guys have all they need. They've got all their drawings, they've got all their engineering, they've got all their government approvals. What they don't have is the money, the capitalization. As soon as we finalize the capitalization, we hope will be soon, we will be able to break ground within 30 days of that point. The window delivery is still late 2028. The project will carry a price tag of a minimum $150 million. So a big boy apartment building planned in Midtown, all ready to rock and roll as long as they can line up that capitalization. I feel for these guys. You know, I'm in the middle of some deals that have been delayed from actually closing on the land because the buyer cannot line up all the capital. They might have the equity lined up, but they can't find the traditional lender. They might have the traditional lender lined up, but they can't find the equity. It's really a situation, even for the heavy hitters. That's why you're seeing so many of these projects being delayed, even though they've got everything they need otherwise to get started. Houston-based Camden continuing plans for 16th floor mixed-use tower for Division Street in the Gulch. Construction on the development is potentially planned to start by year's end at 909 Division Street. In 2021, Camden paid $36 million for the 2-acre property, right? So we were talking about 2.2 acres, not to go back to Pie Town again. So the land in Pie Town is slightly less expensive than the Gulch, but still very expensive. $36 million for a 2-acre property in the Gulch, 24 months after it was acquired for $25 million by Chicago-based LG Development Group. So LG buys it for $25 million, 2 years later flips it for $36 million without ever putting a shovel in the ground. These are the type of prices that we're talking about in the Gulch and to some extent Pie Town. With a previously announced cost of $250 million, Camden Gulch will offer 16 floors, 240 feet tall, with 480 apartments, 8,000 square feet of ground level retail. The since raised suburban style building was home to A+ Storage, among other businesses. So this is on the site of A+ Storage, which is no longer. They've already scraped it. Camden is not new to Nashville. In 2021, the company paid $185 million for the Midtown mixed-use high-rise, now known as Camden Music Row. So again, a very, very high-profile project that is just kind of dragging on. They bought this property for $36 million in 2021. It's 2025, y'all. If they use debt financing on that, which they probably did, you're carrying $36 million for almost 5 years before even starting work on the project. You've got to have deep pockets. You've got to be a heavy hitter to pull that off. But once this is complete, this is going to be a massive 480 unit apartment building coming to the Gulch. And, at those price points, I think we can assume those aren't going to be affordable apartments. Those are going to be the same type of apartments that are having a hard time getting leased right now. They're great locations. They're beautiful. They have nice amenities, but they're at price points that a lot of folks can't afford. $4,000 plus for a 2-bedroom when the people that are living downtown are young people, 20-something people. That's a lot of dough for a 20-something-year-old. Even if you're splitting it with a roommate, $4,000 plus a month, that's tough. That's why you're seeing projects like Paramount flip from apartment to condo. Paramount, one of the larger apartment buildings downtown, got to 40% leased and said, hey, this isn't going to work. We've got to pivot. Let's pivot to a condo building. Let's sell the remaining 60% as condos. Maybe we'll have more luck. So perhaps that's what's delaying this project. I could assume that's true because this is a very deep-pocketed developer. Perhaps they're waiting out the market rather than having a problem lining up their capital. Nevertheless, there's a lot going on that's delaying a lot of these high-profile projects. Now, our last story of the day, the big, beautiful bill affects commercial real estate. I'm going to break down for you the good and bad. I'm going to keep it real simple because this is really kind of boring stuff. But let's break it down. The upside for commercial real estate owners, a permanent 100% bonus depreciation. The act makes 100% bonus depreciation permanent for qualified property. It adds elective 100% write-off on qualified production property, think manufacturing, through 2030. Great for industrial and warehouse development. So this idea is, you are able to write off more in the current year rather than having to spread the depreciation over the lifetime of what they would call the improvement. So to keep this super simple, you pay less property taxes now because you can take all of this bonus depreciation, which lowers your taxable income. So a lot of these new projects are going to be not paying income taxes for quite a while because they're going to be able to burn off all of this bonus depreciation. So your first years of ownership, you're not really looking at an income tax bill. That's kind of the idea there. Second, expanded opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are now permanent, providing ongoing capital gain deferral incentives. However, OZ boundaries, opportunity zone boundaries, are tightened to a 75% income threshold with adjacencies restricted. So I've never been a big advocate of opportunity zones. They're really only appropriate for the biggest kind of institutional investors who want to manage it all. There's a lot of rules that go into it. The mom and pop investors don't think hard about opportunity zones at all. It's one of those things where I suppose it's helpful to a small degree, but for most of the people I deal with, opportunity zones are not something we ever discuss. Enhanced affordable housing credits, low income housing tax credits, also known as LIHTC for the abbreviation, is expanded. Bond financing threshold lowered from 50% to 25%. New markets tax credit extended permanently at $5 billion per year. So these are some of the federal programs that incentivize affordable housing, generally by taking an older building, perhaps that was not an apartment building, like imagine an old office building, and converting it to affordable apartments, and then using some of these very complicated housing tax credit programs to do so. I've been involved with some of that over the years. That is just not my thing. Learning how to navigate government housing credits is just not my thing. There are very few guys that actually do it. The guys that do it seem to be doing pretty well with it, but it just, everything government kind of turns me off. So I've never really leaned into affordable housing credits, but I do think that will be well received for that small portion of the market that's interested. And an industrial CRE boost, a 4-year window for 100% expensing on new factories, which reduces upfront costs. So they tried to play with all of these tax rules regarding bonus depreciation, opportunity zones, housing credits, and expensing new factories on day one in an effort to incentivize more building. So again, all of that is going to appeal to some folks. Most of the market isn't real interested in that. Now let's talk quickly about the downside, then I'm going to give you my hot take on what actually would move the needle. Stricter opportunity zone criteria is the downside. That's something we just talked about. Retroactive manufacturing build rules. Factories must remain operational for at least 10 years. Exits or redeployments before then could trigger a tax recapture. Energy credit rollbacks. So a lot of the Biden administration stuff was throwing our money at these green energy incentives. A lot of that got rolled back in this new bill. And state level variability. Some states may not follow federal bonus depreciation rules, creating inconsistent tax treatment on property write-offs. So in these states where you have an income tax, you might have to have one calculation for the state and one calculation for the federal. So they're stating that is also a drawback. So all of that stuff, all right, that's pretty cool. That'll help some people, but on the local level, at the mom and pop level, none of that's really moving the needle. What would move the needle is make lending great again. Make lending great again. Let banks borrow money to anybody who they think is a good business decision. Loosen the rules that banks have to play by to lend money to folks. If a guy's been at a bank for 20 years and that bank knows him from 20 years of history, they know he's good for it, that bank should be able to lend him money if they so choose without having to jump through any hoops at the federal level. And that is the problem right now. Everything that a lender does today has to be cross-checked with federal rules. None of these guys want to get under the microscope of these federal regulators. So all of these boxes that need to be checked at all of these banks that are refusing to lend money right now, most of those check boxes are coming from the federal government. We absolutely have to get back to a place where banks are allowed to be in the business of lending money to anyone they think is a good business decision. I also, and this is a big one, if I got President Trump's ear for a minute, he said, pitch me on an idea that would make America a better place, I would say untether tax returns from lending. So right now, when they're trying to qualify your income to determine whether or not you are a good credit risk to borrow money to, all of those calculations come from a tax return. The problem with that is a tax return is designed to minimize your taxable income. It isn't necessarily an accurate reflection of the business's or the person's true earning power, right? So if the goal is to minimize taxable income on a tax return, that is not the document we should be using to justify our income earning potential and our ability to repay a loan, right? There's lots of other ways to do it, right? If it's a big enough business, they have their own financial statements that they can provide you. If it's an individual lender, they have bank statement programs. They exist today, but they exist at higher interest rates because it's a product that an investor has to hold rather than flip to the federal government, and the federal government takes over that loan as part of a larger investment pool, right? We need to be able to allow banks to be great again. And we need to untether banks' use of tax returns for income verification. And we need to get away from these federally mandated check boxes that every borrower has to meet, or these banks won't lend them money because they're too scared to get in trouble with the federal regulators. The biggest thing President Trump could do, in my opinion, is to make lenders great again by loosening regulations at the federal level. Let banks lend money to who they see fit. And if that doesn't work out, those banks need to accept the outcomes, right? Enough of this, hey, we need to control these banks because if they fail, we're going to bail them out. I don't think so. If they fail, they fail. But in the meantime, they need to be able to borrow money to whoever borrower they think is good for it. They need to start lending money again. The biggest problem we've had in the commercial real estate business in the last 3 years is all on the lenders. The lenders unwilling to borrow money, even at the higher interest rates. That's what a lot of folks don't necessarily understand. They think it's an interest rate issue, and to some extent it is. But there are many buyers out there that would pay the higher interest rate to purchase a property if a bank would lend them the money. But the banks are not lending even at the higher interest rates. And they use as an excuse for doing so the financial regulation passed down upon them by the federal governments. We need financial services, lending reform, whatever you want to call it. We need reform at the federal level to give these local banks the ability to lend money again, make lending great again. That's what I would say to President Trump if I got him in an elevator for a minute. And being a real estate guy, he would absolutely understand it. So that rounds out the show today, guys. I hope we brought you some information that you find valuable, perhaps even a little bit entertaining. You know, there is a lot going on in the Nashville commercial real estate business. Even as a guy that's in it every day, it's hard to keep up with it all. So we try in this podcast to bring you the highlights every couple weeks, so you understand. So you understand what the market is doing, where the opportunities are, you know, and just generally what's going on. So I hope we've added some value. Thanks so much to our sponsors, Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your broker if you are a seller of commercial real estate in Nashville or the Southeast. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again in a couple weeks.